Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take good care. Edge of Tomorrow is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. A few years ago, an asteroid carrying an alien race called the Mimics crashed into Europe and quickly devastated the continent with their superior technology and the surprise factor. Soon people are rioting on the streets, demanding that world leaders do something before humanity is lost. After 5 years, when things look hopeless, an allied army of humans utilizing new mechanized suits wins a major battle in Verdun, and a special forces soldier named Sergeant Vrataski is hailed as a hero after being credited with hundreds of Mimic kills. She becomes an instant icon and a recruiting boom for the human military as the united human armies try to use the momentum for Verdun to launch a multi-pronged final assault on Europe. One of the talking heads on the newsreels selling Vrataski and the war effort is Major Cage of the U.S. Army. One morning, Cage flies to London the day before the operation to retake Europe. He meets with the commander of the Western Allies, General Brigham, who orders Cage to accompany the first wave of Allied troops to land in France and provide ground coverage for the media. Cage was an ROTC cadet in college and has no experience in the field, so he does not want to go to battle. He tries various tactics to avoid the deployment, to the point he tries to blackmail the general via the media. At first, the general pretends to let him go, but as soon as Cage crosses the door, Brigham makes the guards go after him. Cage tries to run away, but he barely gets to reach another corridor before he is tossed into unconsciousness. Later in the afternoon, Cage wakes up on a pile of duffel bags at Heathrow Airport, which has been turned into a military base. A sergeant shoves boots into his hands before Sergeant Farrell takes over. It turns out Brigham sent orders to Farrell stating Cage had tried to desert and has now been demoted from an officer to private. Cage is assigned to a band of eccentric soldiers called the J Squad, who are caught gambling by Farrell when Cage is introduced to them. As he scolds them, Farrell makes them eat the cards before instructing them to get Cage ready to deploy with them tomorrow. Hearing Cage is a deserter that thinks he is above battling puts him on everyone's blacklist, and Cage is sent to training. The next day is Invasion Day and Cage is given his suit, but the members of J Squad do not even bother teaching him how to use it because they believe he will die quickly. Cage watches as everyone moves freely and easily finds his favorite weapon, but is nervous and lost. On the way back, Vrataski proudly leads his army, but Cage still tries to escape. However, the others quickly draw him back. All the planes take off quickly, but just as they are about to land on the French coast, the airship's tail explodes. The squad fell quickly, but Cage was too frightened to fall until the explosion approached. As they fall from the sky, explosions continue to occur around them, and many soldiers die before they reach the ground. The mission to retake Europe was meant to be a surprise attack, but the Mimics seemed to be preparing for a full-scale ambush and began mercilessly slaughtering the people. Cage landed properly, but was still unable to remove the safety on his weapon and ran around in a panic, watching people die everywhere. Both ship and people appear to be on fire, and Cage crashes as a plane crashes near him. Vrataski comes out and starts fighting with great skill, but after a few punches, she gets distracted by seeing Cage on the ground, and something hits her from behind, killing her instantly. Cage soon rejoins the J Squad and tries to come up with a plan, but suddenly an imposter emerges from the ground and attacks them. While the other soldiers frantically shoot at the creature, Cage finally succeeds in unlocking his weapon and defeating the alien, and he is proud of it. Unfortunately, another alien attacks and Cage refuses to go without a fight, so he grabs a mine and while holding it, a blue copycat jumps on him, killing them both. This causes the alien's blood to drip onto Cage and enter his body. Suddenly, Cage wakes up in a panic on top of a duffel bag. The same sergeant gives him the boot, and Farrell takes Cage away again. Cage was confused, especially when he guessed everything Farrell was about to say, proving that the fight was no dream. He finished his meeting with the J Squad, put on his suit and boarded the plane as well, leaving everyone guessing what they would say to him. There was another explosion, and this time I remembered that the Cage would fall faster. As soon as he landed, he remembered the death of his comrade and tried to warn him, but was not quick enough and the man died anyway. Cage then finds Vrataski, knocks her to the ground and shoots her. Seeing him injured, Vrataski takes the opportunity to steal the suit's battery, and at that moment another alien kills him. Cage wakes up again at the airport, realizing that everything he saw was real and that they would soon jump into an ambush. He tries to warn Farrell about it. He attempts to prove his story by naming every J Squad soldier and revealing where they hid his cards. Unfortunately, his words are not believed and Cage is sent on a plane with his mouth taped. The plane explodes and Cage immediately crashes trying to rescue the other soldiers, but he dies. Cage finally understands that dying changes your day and begins to use it to his advantage. No one believes what he says, so he just throws himself into the fight and does his best to save people even though he keeps getting killed. After dozens of failed attempts, he reaches a loop where he pushes Vrataski far away and shoots at anything that comes near her without looking, while warning her several times, because he already knows where everything is. Vladiski stares at him in shock, but still believes everything he says, and when another alien tries to kill him, Vladiski says, "Find me when you wake up," and then, they both die again. Cage wakes up again on a duffel bag, but this time she begins working with Farrell and J-Squad to buy time to find Vladiski. He is polite and even helps the troop hide their cards before Farrell sees them. Every time they go to training, he starts looking for a way to sneak away. His first attempt was to get stuck in traffic waiting for a training session, but on the way he was hit by a truck. After he dies several times, he manages to roll smoothly and escape by hiding behind a car. He enters the training facility, avoiding the training equipment, but Vrataski looks down on him until he says she sent him. Vrataski immediately understands what he is saying and takes him with him. He says he can't tell anyone but her because if he doesn't she'll end up in a mental ward, but that's already happened to her. She then takes him to Dr. Carter. Dr. Carter immediately believes everything and checks to see if it's the first time the two speak. It turns out that Vrataski also previously could loop, obtained from the blood of a blue alpha mimic, but that he lost it after a blood transfusion. Cage always needs to make sure he dies for good, rather than being resurrected by accident. She needs to make sure he doesn't lose it too. With this power she brought great victories to humanity, so the aliens always know when they are coming. Carter's theory is that all mimics are merely neurological manifestations of alien Omega creatures that are beyond reason, so he developed a device that could pinpoint the location of Omega aboard Alpha. However, this experiment led to him being fired and his machine confiscated. To find Omega, they must first defeat tomorrow's invasion, so Vrataski begins training Cage at an advanced facility. The speed of the training equipment is too fast for the Cage to protect itself. When he is wounded, Vrataski shoots him to start the day over. Over the next 100 rounds, Cage repeats the same routine over and over again. He finds Vrataski, explains everything from scratch, and immediately begins training. He got better with each round, learning patterns and training longer like an expert, but Vrataski still had to shoot him every day. After Cage is shot dozens of times, he sees a vision of Omega in a dam in Germany before he wakes up. He immediately goes to Vrataski and Carter. They believe that the vision is because Cage became an alpha thanks to his blue blood. The next step is to survive the invasion to escape to Germany. Now, the two use the knowledge they gained from the Cage to discuss strategy in each round, and the morning they go into battle ready for battle. In hundreds of loops, they fight and kill copycats over and over again, dying each time and barely advancing a step or two on the field. During their time together, Cage develops her love for Vrataski, but she does not remember him ever feeling the same way. When she dies in a loop early in the battle, Cage begins to question whether it is worth it. For several rounds, Cage doesn't care about the fight and tries to escape from the base. Other soldiers try to stop him, but Cage has experienced this so many times that he memorizes their movements and closes his eyes to avoid them. He rides his bike into town and tries to get drunk at a bar, but then an alien comes across the river. Seeing civilians dying, Cage began training again, impressing Vrataski with his new abilities. The next time we see Carter, he knows the exact location of the dam, but Cage already knows and considers it useless information if he can't escape the invasion. Cage and Vrataski circle the beach once more, killing the copycats mercilessly until they finally escape into the hills. Carter tells Vrataski which vehicles he should not take as it is not his first time here, but so far he has not been able to escape the aliens. They get into a car with a trailer and accelerate to the road, dodging bullets fired at them. The radio announces that the alien has arrived in London, but then a copycat jumps onto the trailer and quickly attacks it with his tentacles. Cage uses the hole in the car to jump out and shoot Copycat, destroying it instantly. As the two drive away, Cage attempts to bond with Vrataski, revealing details he learned from other loops, such as her family situation. This time, Cage learns that Vrataski once had a partner. He was a soldier too, so she watched him die hundreds of times before she lost track of him and he died forever. Eventually, the car runs out of gas and the suit's battery dies, so they leave the car behind and enter a farmhouse they find near the road. There is a helicopter in the backyard, and Vrataski wants to use it to escape. Cage buys time by offering to tend to her wounds while explaining why the helicopter is a bad idea. Vrataski realizes that Cage is trying to make her stay and demands the truth, so Cage reveals that they have been here many times and she always dies. Since he has not found a way to solve the problem, he wants to continue his work on his own. Vrataski is angry, but he gets into the helicopter anyway and tries to take off, but he doesn't know how to control the helicopter. After struggling and destroying a house in the process, the helicopter crashes and Cage has to watch her die again before the aliens arrive and kill them. In the next loop, Cage goes to Vrataski, but when he sees her face, he feels guilty and decides not to tell her. When he's ready for battle, he asks for extra ammo and doesn't even bother putting on a helmet, as his looping knowledge means he doesn't need a helmet to easily kill a few imitators. Flee the area again. After several attempts, Cage learns to fly a helicopter and finally reaches a dam in Germany on his own. He carefully walks around, carrying a smoke bomb just in case, but when he finally reaches the center of the building, he is disappointed to find it empty. At that moment, two imitators block his path and shoot him, but before he can lose any blood, Cage jumps into the water and drowns. During the next round, Cage goes to Vrataski and Carter and informs them that Omega is not in the dam. They discover that Vision and Vrataski's success was a ruse by the Omega Mimic Overmind to lure humanity into an invasion of Europe, where humanity will be invaded and destroyed. With no more clues left, Carter's device becomes the final shot, but unfortunately it is confiscated by Brigham. Vrataski and Cage formulate their next plan to retrieve the machine. They make several attempts to break into the administrative base, learning how the guards and all employees in the building can move through the building unnoticed and safely board the elevators. When he finally reaches Brigham, he tells him that he has had this conversation many times. To prove this, Cage predicts everything the secretary will say and do. Impressed, Brigham retrieves the machine from the safe and says he wants to use it, but the Cage refuses because it can malfunction and cannot be looped. Brigham gives them the machine and frees them, which is also a trick. Security guards were waiting outside and tried to arrest them. The two quickly return to the parking lot, steal a car and drive as fast as they can, avoiding all the bullets from the chasing guards. While Vrataski was driving, Cage injected his leg with a machine and his eyes went black as if he had a hallucination that his Omega was under the Louvre in Paris. It turns out, Cage wakes up and manages to get out on the road to tell Vrataski, but the gunfire continues and suddenly a soldier in a mech suit blocks the road. Using the suit's powers, he manages to stop the car, but the accident leaves them both unconscious. Hours later, Cage wakes up strapped to his stretcher and arrested. He realizes that he has become obsolete by receiving a blood transfusion. As he struggles with the stretcher and falls trying to escape, Vrataski appears and frees him. She tries to kill him, but he stops her and explains to her that he feels he can't go on anymore. Vrataski then released the two, and thanks to Cage's old security knowledge, they carefully return to base. He only has 3 hours until the invasion, and he needs soldiers to defeat Omega without ribbons. Cage decides to approach J-Troop and convince them that he is telling the truth by revealing a number of the secrets he learned in previous rounds. The troop is impressed, but unsure whether to follow the stranger. Fortunately, the famous Vrataski comes forward and quickly wins her allegiance. In the morning, the troops receive their suits, but instead of joining the rest of the troops, they steal a plane and take off. Cage warns everyone not to kill the Blue Alpha, otherwise the day will be reset. Only orange aliens are allowed to be killed. He does not want Vrataski to come, as now he cannot undo her death, but she refuses to stay. When they arrived in Paris, the copycats immediately began firing at the plane to protect their leader, killing the first soldier. His best friend angrily starts shooting through the plane's door, and as the rest of the group heads out, the plane loses control and crashes to the ground, killing several more soldiers. The sudden fall caused Cage to fall into the water, and the weight of his suit gripped him to the ground. He has no choice but to take it off to swim out. He then cautiously heads to the Louvre, but he is shocked to find the entire area in ruins. The sudden noise startles him, but Vrataski reveals that only 3 of his squad members survived. They gather together and realize they don't have enough ammunition to continue and only a few grenades to defeat Omega. Then Cage gets an idea. The plane can't fly, but its engines will work, so you'll be able to glide past the simulated defenders and fly straight to the museum. 2 soldiers, still in their suits, decided to remove all the debris and remain in their place. When Vrataski moves his plane, the copycats quickly give chase, and the soldiers use their suits to join the fight. They shoot all the ammunition at their disposal and manage to kill some of the orange aliens, but it's not enough and unfortunately they are both killed quickly. The imitators then approach the plane, and a 3rd soldier also begins shelling the plane with full force. Unfortunately, too many aliens open fire at the same time, killing him as well. Cage immediately takes over his cannon and shoots the imitators as quickly as possible, but he's only human and can't kill everyone fast enough. The copycats jump onto the roof of the plane and begin destroying it, causing Cage to direct his gunfire inward. The impact causes Vrataski to jump from his seat, but Cage quickly takes cover and rushes back to the control panel, where he can steer the plane past several famous monuments. Cage is left hanging outside the plane as it finally smashes through the museum, where Cage rolls off and safely makes it to the ground. Vrataski survives the crash as well thanks to her seat and grabs all their remaining weapons before joining Cage. The duo begins running through the main museum floor, although Vrataski is slower because her leg is hurt. They shoot a few aliens in the way and Cage then drops a grenade before they jump into a hole in the floor, only to land on top of a car in the underground area. Debris is about to fall on top of them too, but Cage rolls them away just in time. When they hear the copycats upstairs trying to find a way to reach them, the duo realizes the area is flooded and realizes that Omega is hiding underwater. Just then, Alpha arrived in the area, and they quickly hid behind some rubble and devised a plan. Cage tries to distract Alpha while Vladiski kills Omega, but Vladiski refuses, saying he is the better fighter and can provide more of a distraction. After giving him the grenade, Vladiski thanks Cage for getting him this far, and he says he should have gotten to know him better before kissing him. He says it's because even if he kisses her, she knows how he feels even if he doesn't say it back. Afterward, Vladiski begins running away to make the Alpha mimic follow her, not attacking it to avoid restarting the loop. She tries to hide behind a car, but the mimic takes an alternate corridor and surprises her from behind, jumping on her to kill her. Meanwhile, Cage jumps into the water and swims around the debris, looking for the Omega. The Alpha dives in as well to chase him, so Cage tries to go through narrow spaces to slow it down. After lots of desperate swimming, Cage finally finds the Omega, which looks like a huge glowing ball. As he prepares the grenade, Alpha Copycat catches up to him and stabs him with its tentacles. Cage screams and drops the grenade, but when he turns around, it is revealed that he has already removed the pin. The copycats immediately begin to tremble in pain as the grenade explodes as it reaches the center of Omega, and Alpha slowly disintegrates just before Omega explodes, resulting in a massive explosion that destroys the museum and leaves the outside. All of the aliens present also died. As Cage's body floats in the water, Omega's blood enters Cage and restores his black eye. Suddenly, Cage wakes up and finds that he has been on a helicopter heading to London since the morning before the invasion. Surprisingly, not only is he alive, but everyone in the city is celebrating. After a mysterious explosion in Paris, the mimics have all become extinct, and now human armies are marching across Europe without resistance. It turns out that it's all over the place. The next day, they advance on the Western Front and achieve final victory. Cage then went to the airport base, where he was glad that all members of J-Squad were safe. He then goes to a training facility where he is greeted with respect since he is still a major and has never lost his status. Cage finds Vladiski at his usual place, but she greets him rudely, like a stranger, making Cage laugh. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.